Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, July 11th, 2025. This week's Chairman's Report is guest written by Rich Germaine. Now, Rich is a media and marketing consultant who spent most of his adult life working in the media, including radio, television, and the motion picture industry. For more than 15 years, Rich's voice has been heard on the opening of the popular long-running travel series, Rick Steves' Travels in Europe on PBS. A national survey reveals some hidden gems and a bright future. Let's keep the momentum going. For several months now, I've had the privilege of working with a group of FAIRtax leaders to develop a national survey on behalf of the National Tax Research Committee. The purpose of the survey was threefold. 1. Measure voter opinions and attitudes concerning the elimination of the income tax in the IRS. 2. Measure voter opinion in support for replacing the current federal tax system with a national consumption tax. And 3. Measure voter awareness of the FAIRtax, H.R. 25. I'm happy to say the results were extremely positive, and we found a couple of hidden gems in the data. Now, before asking or explaining anything about the FAIRtax, the survey began by asking the voters, do you support or oppose eliminating the federal income tax and abolishing the IRS? Half the population supported that idea. Now, that's a strong positive reply to a question that didn't offer an alternative tax system, at least not yet. Then, as we dig deeper, we find that 31% of Democrats strongly oppose the idea of eliminating the income tax in the IRS. But wait, there's more. Later, after explaining some of the benefits and proposing the idea of taking home 100% of your paycheck by replacing the current system, including the income tax, payroll tax, corporate taxes, capital gains tax, gift and inheritance taxes, support exploded off the charts, especially by political affiliation. A majority of all voters support the idea, including 52% of Democrats and 51% of independents. That is a big win for the FAIRtax, which means we need to educate our neighbors when opportunity arises. Once they learn the benefits of the FAIRtax, it just makes so much sense. It's time to be bold. We also asked people if they had even heard of the FAIRtax, and even though only 24% overall had heard of it, in some ways that number was encouraging considering that over the last couple of decades, the media has largely ignored the FAIRtax, and consequently, the FAIRtax has not been included in the public debate over tax reform. However, surprisingly, the younger generation showed greater awareness than expected. In fact, more younger voters are aware of the FAIRtax than the older age groups. Over 1/3 of the population under age 45 had heard of the FAIRtax, and that's a strong number to build on. Finally, 73% of those under 45 support the idea of eliminating the income tax and replacing it with a national sales tax. Clearly, the younger voter population is ready for serious tax reform. Now, that means that we need to encourage voters to support those candidates in the midterm who are committed to tax reform, especially those who support the FAIRtax. Yes, we know that the big, beautiful bill is occupying everyone's attention, both in Congress and in the national media at the moment, but still, there's no reason we can't transition the conversation from tax cuts to a complete tax replacement system over the next year or two, or sooner. President Trump, the new IRS Commissioner Billy Long, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent have all stated they want to see the IRS abolished. It's time to let them know that a bipartisan majority of voters support the idea too. This is the time. Now, the FAIRtax movement is still a grassroots campaign. It takes all of us sharing the benefits of what it truly means to eliminate the income tax and abolish the IRS. You can start by sharing the results of this national survey, available as a free download at Quantus, Quantus, Quantus Insights. They conducted the survey in June of 2025. Now, Quantus Insights was ranked as one of the most accurate polling services in 2024, especially during the federal election cycle. You can download the entire survey presentation using links provided in the hard copy version of this chairman's report published at FAIRtax.org. In a year where accuracy mattered more than ever, Quantus Insights delivered. In October alone, their polling averaged just a 1-point error across the Rust Belt and national polling. Their final national numbers had Trump at 49.1%, Harris at 48.3%. The actual result, Trump 49.8%, and they nailed Harris at 48.3%, thus the 0.7-point margin of error. Independent pollsters and analysts took notice. Atlas Intel named Quantus Insights as one of the most accurate pollsters in swing states for the 2024 election, and ActiveVote listed them among their top 20 most valuable pollsters out of over 120 firms. In conclusion, Rich has clearly demonstrated that the American people are ready to eliminate the present income payroll tax system. Now, many of you have labored tirelessly for freedom from the federal income tax and the IRS. You deserve a great deal of credit for your efforts to educate the American people on the need to fund the American government in a way that's good for America and that returns freedom to the American people. It's imperative, though, that we don't replace the current income tax and the IRS with an alternative system that can still be manipulated by the ruling elite. We must let Congress and the President know that the best way to replace the income tax and the IRS is with the fair tax. Now, make no mistake about it. The fair tax is a grave threat to the ruling elites. It will strip them of their power and their ability to control us through the tax system. Their opposition to the fair tax will be fierce and unrelenting, and don't think for an instant they won't use half-truths, deception, and downright lies in their desperate attempt to hang on to their power. However, with the support of this president, we can finally eliminate the income tax and the IRS. Now, of course, the best course of action is not only to repeal the income tax and abolish the IRS, but to repeal the 16th Amendment as well, so that no future administration can ever shackle the American people with an income tax again. We must come together and ensure that real tax reform, the fair tax, is not subverted by the elites in D.C. This will take the diligent efforts from all of us. We need your financial assistance, and we need your grassroots assistance. Now, if you have contacts that will allow us to get more information about the fair tax to President Trump, please let us know. Also, please email us at info@fairtax.org, and we'll give you some options on how you can best help us. At a minimum, please call your congressional representative and ask if he or she supports the fair tax. If so, thank him or her for their support and suggest they become a co-sponsor of H.R. 25 if they're not one already. If not, ask why not. Now, if your representative claims to be unfamiliar with the fair tax, offer to have someone come to their office and explain it to them. The solution: pass the fair tax. Now, why would D.C. pass the fair tax and give up an almost unlimited source of donations? Well, they won't, at least not voluntarily. The only way they will is if the rest of us demand it. Isn't it time to end this ludicrous tax collection system and the IRS along with it? Help bring about real tax reform and stop future IRS abuses. By contributing, or actually investing, $10.40 a month, you help provide a financial base to Americans for fair taxation. Now, if you can make larger contributions/investments, these will be used not for salaries, as we're all volunteers, but for the needed updates to our economic studies, which will be vital for all future years. Please go to FAIRtax.org to invest in AFFT and help us pass the fair tax. It's an investment in your and your family's future.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.